You may not think much of cows, but they can stand by you like no one else does when it comes to it. They be as loyal as dogs, they be. Let me tell you a story about me cows, and how one day they saved my farm and myself from bugly bears in them hills up in the barley country. You know the place I'm speaking of. Old Anzarian Flidkin has his place up there. He's no fool neither. He keeps close to his cows, as I do. The time it was, I had to ask seed from Ginter Drim along Halderbanks north o' here. It was 3 years ago when the rains were so bad on this side of the Brimhendle range. Washed me starts clean out and nothing to do about it. So I hitched up them cows and went to beggin'. Made it over to Ginter's no problem, and he was glad to lend me seed as I'd do same for him, as any in this valley would do for any other come need. So he gives me the seed and a little barrel o' mead too, just for good cheer. He makes good mead, does Ginter. Keeps his bees in old ash stumps, the ones that was left from making battering rams in the Dane Wars. I was there, and Ginter and Anzarian was too. That was where Anzarian got his hook hand and that terrible scar across his nose. Meanest looking halfling I've put eye to, but heart of stinking gold. Pass the mead. 'Twas just down the hill, a league from his place on my way back, and I wasn't too shy about that mead neither, when them bugly bears laid a trap for me. Must have seen me on the way over, and I was too down in spirits to even keep my eye out for that kind of trouble. Stupid on me. So they saw me and laid a trap for when I come back. But I had me cows, as I said it before, and that's for more than pulling the cart. So they come out at me, these 4 big fellas. Bugly bears have a smell about 'em, as most of us do, but I should have smelt 'em a sharp 100 yards before what I did, and that only after they stepped out from behind the rock. You know the rock I'm talking about, the one that sits halfway up the hill on the Brimhendle track. Looks like it was dropped there by a wizard's whimsy. Many a fine nap I've had on that noonday sun on my way to visit Ginter. Like to see her on the way home, as it sits at the 3/4 mark in that direction. Cows like it too. Smell the barn from there, so to speak. Pass the mead. Well, I grabbed up me axe, not for what you might think it was for. I was a soldier in my youth when I had to be, as I mentioned before. But bugly bears is strong as horses, and mean. You show me a man or woman can stand up to one of them, and I'll show you a hero. I ain't no one of those, but I know a trick or two. Fast as I could, I hacked the rigging from the cows, thinking that they might at least get away and save themselves. Now, one thing you got to know is that I don't have no bull. Bulls is different from cows, and they don't have the same sensibilities. If I'd had a bull, well, things might have went different, and that might have been bad for me. Now, you got to know me cows, 'cause see, cows ain't all of one mind. Each has her own peculiarities and persnicketynesses. So I had with me these 4 good cows, and when I get them loose with my axe, I yelled, "Go!" And I called them by name to let them know who it was I was speaking to. Go, Andranor, and Sindranor, and Chandradarian, and Moo. And off they went, a-lowing and shaking their big heads, and rolling those big dark eyes they have in those big heads. At first I thought they might just run down those bugly bears and tromp 'em to death. Pass the mead. Those cows, they did run right at the bugly bears at first, but then they all turned one way or another and ran away. Andranor and Sindranor ran together, and they always have. They was born of the same dam, only a year apart. They be so alike in nature that they both have broken off a horn on the same side of the head. It's on account that they take the corner too near the barn when they're led to pasture sometimes. I leave the reaping hook there. It'd be a great sturdy tool given me by my dad, and they both knocked off a bit of horn on it. Sindranor has hide that's all a deep brown, but Andranor has the one haunch, is as ruddy as a hog's insides laid fresh. So they both ran down the hill into the high bush there. Pass the mead. Chandradarian I bought in the fancy market down in Failroth, and she is a beauty of a cow. She went up the hill instead, maybe making for Anzarian's place, I reckon, 'cause she could smell her own git, what I sold him a year before. A huge bull of a lad, and he never gelt him, and I swear that one day that bull will be the death of him. But Chandradarian loved that bull calf, and never could walk that path without pulling the yoke in that direction. So she went that way, and so did Moo. Pass the mead. Moo, that scoundrel cow, used to reach her head right in the window and steal a potato right off my plate if I left the window open and didn't watch. She came to me on her own, and I never asked no questions about where she come from. Well, she ran up the hill behind Chandradarian a few paces, but then she stopped and turned around to watch the transpirations between me and the Buggly Bears. Once the cows were free and I could see that they weren't about to stampede me out of trouble, I ran for it up the rock. Of course, there was no getting away from the Buggly Bears just by climbing a rock, but I had my axe, and I thought they might not bother to come after me, what with the wagon sitting there and the cows all running around. But they were after coin or something, 'cause after they split the barrel with their own axe and drunk the rest of the mead, they came up after me. Only one stayed down on the ground. Pass the mead. I never did see exactly what transpired between that one Buggly Bear that stayed down and my Moo, but after it all I found him with 2 holes clean through his chest, armor and all. Well, I was backed right up to the precipice of that old rock, my heels in the air, so to speak, as those 3 brutes came in with their axes and clubs, and how Moo got up there I don't know. But she was somehow incensed at the situation and determined to make a statement about it. She came on our assailants without mercy. 2 she flung down from the rock, and afterward I buried them under piles of loose stone. The last of the Buggly Bears turned right around on her. He was a fierce one, he was. His axe haft had a dozen or so notches of the kind our officers used to make in the war after they'd made meat of a foe. He swung for her. That was when she lost her eye. She still gets riled up if someone stands on her right side and she don't know his smell. Anyway, she riled up on him right there on that rock. He tried to take another swing, but she gored him like she'd done the first one. Then she dropped him over the edge. Pass the mead. Well, I was so shook up it took me a while to come down, and when I did, there she was, standing in the traces and ready to go, just chewing her cud. I had to chase down the other 3 cows, but my Moo, she knew what business we were about. So I says, you might take good care if you have a cow, and she might take good care of you too. And every now and then, I pour some meat on my potato and leave the window open wide, just as an offering, you might say. Pass the mead.